am Sharon Tillman. Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of A Journey to Identity. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is having an amazing day on today. And happy middle of September, right? Um, I am so thankful for all of you who have taken the time out to just be a part of this journey with me. For everybody that I have inspired in any way, I'm so grateful for you just coming and listening and choosing to be a part of this journey, not just for me, but for you, right? So I get asked the question, and I got asked the question again this week. So I said, I want to make sure that I definitely do reiterate why I am here. um, it's not just for you to hear my tea. It's not just for you to hear my story. It's not just for you to be like, oh my God, it gives me a little bit of insight into her world and into what happened and into what's going on and things of that nature. But it's really for you to understand that no matter where you've been through, no matter what you've gone through in your life, no matter what you're going through, that you are chosen, that you are uniquely crafted for who God has called you to be. And everything that is happening and that has happened is all a part of your journey to your identity. And your identity is found in your creator, in the one who has created you, in the one who has crafted you, in the one who had a plan and a purpose for you even before putting you in your mother's womb. Like your reasoning for even being here on this earth, right? Your identity is tied to all of that, and your creator is the only one who can found it for you. So it's easy for us to say that, my identity is, who I am based on my job title or based on my status, based on what's in my account, based on what I possess. Like we all have identified by those things. My identity is based on my trauma. It's based on the things that I've been through in my life. It's based on my past and all of the mistakes that I've made, because a lot of people tie their identity to their mistakes, and then they feel like they don't deserve anything good to happen. They don't deserve anything positive to ever come out of their life, and they feel like they'll always be at the bottom of the tadpole because of the things that they've done or because of the choices that they've made. But I want you to know, right? I need you to listen to me very, very carefully, because I want you to know that in spite of all of the things that I just named, your identity is not tied to any of those things. If you take away your status, if you take away the money, if you take away whatever you possess, if you take away the trauma, if you take away the past, if you take away the mistakes and the choices, if you take away any of the things that you feel like make you who you are, guess what? Who God has called you to be is still at the core. So the objective is to get to the core of who you are and allow all of the other things to be added bonuses, all of the other things to be assets, but not to be the totality of who you are. Because who you are is not based on what you do. It's not based on what you bring. It's not based on what you have. It's not based on what you possess. It's not based on where you live. It's not based on where you've been. It's not based on your environment. It's not even based on your past. And it's not based on your parents, right? Just because you have that last name, it doesn't mean that you're that's your identity, and this is how you have to identify. You're identifying according to how your father has created you, who he's called you to be, what it is that he's called you to do. That is why you're here. That is why you're identifying, and that is why I am here. I am here sharing my journey to identity with you, because these are the things that I experienced in my life as I was in search of my identity that really helped land it for me. And it wasn't until I tapped into my father and the creator of, my being and my life, and really accepting who God had called me to be, really being able to accept who it is that he said that I was, in spite of what it looks like. Because when you've been rejected a lot in your life and God comes and says, but I accepted you, You got to really tap into that in order for you to believe that you're accepted in spite of all of the other rejection that you've experienced in your life. And so for me, those were some of the steps that I had to take before I could believe that I was accepted just because God said so. I had to allow it to resonate and become louder for me than all of the rejection that I had experienced in my life, even by my foundational parents. And so this is why I say it doesn't even matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter where you come from. Because some of us come from a one-parent home, some of us come from a two-parent home, some of us come from a no-parent home, right? Some of us have been adopted into families that we don't feel like we belong in, that we don't feel like we fit into. Some of us didn't get adopted, but neither one of our core biological foundational parents were there for us. And so we felt like we were out here alone in the world. Whatever your story is, whichever one of those align with you and align with what your journey has looked like so far, I want to encourage you that even that doesn't change who God has called you to be. Whether your parents were here or not, it doesn't change who God has called you to be. It doesn't matter, even the mistakes that you've made, it doesn't change who God has called you to be. So you would have to believe that God is, right? You got to believe that he is. You got to believe the words that he say. You got to believe the word that is written, because it is written. And you got to get to know the character of the person that you're trying to believe in, so that it can become louder for you than what you've experienced or what you faced here on this earth. And so for me, that's what it was. It was me really getting to know the Father. Who is the Father, right? Who is he? Why me, right? Why did you accept me? What is it about me? Listen, I love Myles Munroe, and then I'm going to jump in because once I get stirred up, I can go, right? I love Myles Munroe, right? Loved his ministry, still love his ministry. I still listen to a lot of his ministry even today. One thing that he said that resonated with me for such a long time was, all throughout the Bible, it talks about God loving us, but it never talked about why. It never talked about why. Because if it ever would have said why, then it wouldn't have been unconditional. It would have been more of a contract. And so when we think about our life and how it's made up, right? We don't understand why God chose us. We don't understand why God loves us. We don't even understand like the why behind it, because he didn't say why. He just told us that he loved us. And he showed us that he loved us by sending his only son to die for our sins. So I wanted to just bring that out. I wanted to just, because I wanted to resonate with you the way it resonated with me, right? How many times do we have relationships in our life that we don't feel are transactional, or we don't feel that are contractional, but they end up being one or both, because we've got expectations and we've got anticipations and all of these things of what they're supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like and why they're supposed to tell us that they love us and why they're supposed to show us that they love us and how they're supposed to do this, that, and the third. And God didn't tell us why. He simply just showed us through his action. And so that was enough for me. And I don't know about you. I don't know if that's enough for you. But as broken and as wretched as I was, as messed up as I was, as messed up as I still am without the covering of the Father, as I walked around here undeserving of that kind of love, it was like, if he can love me in that magnitude, then who am I not to give him an opportunity? Who am I not to even get to know this person who would give their only begotten son just for me? Just for me, because I had to make it personal at that point. And so I want you to think about it, and I want you to allow it to resonate with you, because I want even you to get an understanding. I want you to understand the character of God and to understand how much God loves you. And if he says that you're a royal priesthood, First Peter 2:9, if he says that you're a royal priesthood, and if he says that you're blessed, and if he say that he accepted you when the world rejected you, if he says these things to you, then you can take that check to the bank and cash it. Like, you can believe it, you can bank on it, you can stand firm on the foundation of it. And so I just want you to be encouraged in that. So that is why I'm here, guys. I am here for that reason. I want you to look at your own life. I'm sharing my journey with you. But as I share my journey, you've all got your own journeys. Every single one of us have a journey that that we're walking out every single day, right? A journey means we haven't arrived. We're still on the journey. And so because we all have a journey, I want you to take a look at your own journey. And I want you to take a look at where you are and take a look at where you've been. Think about some of the choices. Think about some of the things that you've even had to endure. Some of the things that you endured that you were responsible for. Some of the things that you've endured you weren't, right? Because the just of God says that there are some things that we go through in our life that we had no control over. It doesn't change who he's called us to be. So I want you to look and examine your journey, examine where you are, examine where you're going, examine who do you feel like you are? Who do you feel like you're showing up to be? And then who do you think God is calling you to be? Because they have to align. They got to be one and the same. We're not two separate people. We don't become who God wants us to be at church and when we're around people, and then we get to be somebody else when we're not. This aligns. So I want you to think about it. As you hear my journey, I want you to think about your own journey and how your journey is creating this world of identity for you. And it's leading you closer to God and who he's calling you to be if you allow it to, right? Because the journey, you got to be willing to go in the direction. You got to be willing to be led, or you're going to be like out here in the wilderness and you're going to be circling and you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to think about, what do you want out of it? Do you want to be who God has called you to be? Do you want to experience that? Do you want to be able to say, like, I was able to walk effectively in who I believe that God called me to be here on this earth. And my identity in Christ is what's presented all the time and not just some of the time, or not because I've been through so many things in my life, then I don't feel like I know who I am, or I know who God has created me to be. Or because I've made these choices in my life, then I don't feel deserving of being anybody, being who God has called me to be. So I'm not going to allow him to have his way in my life, because none of us are undeserving. Let me be very clear. But there are some of us who have said, God, as undeserving as I am, I'm surrendering myself. I'm dying to myself so that you can get the glory out of this life. You can get the glory out of who you've called me to be. You can get the glory out of this story, because it's not about me. So that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that this resonates with you. Listen, I don't know exactly who this is for. All I know is the obedience of Christ says share the story, and that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing this journey, and for everyone who can relate to it, I hope that you can relate, that you will take heed, that you will just keep going, that you will keep fighting. Don't give up no matter what happens, no matter what distractions may come, no matter what things look like. Just keep going, keep fighting, keep pushing for your identity in Christ, right? Okay, so my last episode, I talked about John coming home. John was getting ready to get released from, he's getting ready to be released from rehab at this point. He's been in rehab for about 2.5 weeks. And so he's getting ready to be released. John still can't walk, of course. So he starts out in a wheelchair, and then he goes from a wheelchair to a walker, from walker to crutches, and then from crutches to um, a boot on his foot, a boot on the foot that was helping him balance to now, today, to this day, he can walk. Okay. So just to, push you up to speed just a little bit. So this is around August time. John is coming home, and, we have a nurse that's coming in because, again, I said in our last episode, John can't be home by himself. So he can't be home by himself. He can't be left alone. Like he still needs around the clock care. So the nurse comes in. His mom was coming. John's mom was coming to relieve the nurse and to stay home most of the time until I got home. There were times that she couldn't do it. There were times when, other things were taking precedent, and I would get like other people to do it. Like I would get my family members to do it sometimes. Sometimes my sister would come, and I think my mom may have come. I think my mom may have come once or twice because she was here. Maybe she had to be here for like a doctor's appointment or something, and she was able to just keep an eye on him or something like that. But he was around the clock care. Things were getting really topsy-turvy here, as I mentioned before. With the nurse, John didn't want to eat the food, so John would complain. His mom would bring in food. And so the mom and the nurse start building a bond because the mom would talk about me to the nurse. And so the nurse would say, yeah, John doesn't want to eat the food because he says the food is nasty. And the mom will say something like, yeah, because she can't cook, right? I mean, it's petty, but this is where we are. These are the things that were happening. And these were the things that were happening while they were in our home, right? Because all of these things were taking place in our home. And so I remember even one particular day, one of John's aunts calling me from his dad's side saying, hey, I just wanted to know, like, what's the protocol to get information about John? Because John's mom said not to call you. You don't give out information. Like, she's the point of contact because you don't know what you're talking about, when clearly all of the information that John's mom is getting comes from me because I am the point of contact, right? So everything that needs to be known, I'm the one that says it. So it was just a lot of different things. I'm bringing clarity into this because I need you to see the agitation and the frustration that's starting to take place. At this point, I feel like I'm fighting battles within my own home. And it's like we're both here because we've got the same come and go. And I said this before, but I feel the need to reiterate it again. The enemy is so slick, right? So John 10:10 says that the enemy comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. I always say and to distract. I added that, right? So if you ever hear anybody saying and distract, they got that from me. I added that to the Bible. I need to see how I can go and get this in the King James Version or something. I don't know. But God says that I come that you may have life and have life more abundantly. I say that because the enemy knew that those were distractions that would keep us from unifying, right? So like a lot of times we're looking at the enemy like he's this big bad wolf, and a lot of times we're giving him way more credit than he deserves. But I can see where he will throw in little darts that will be distractions. And because we focus so much on the distraction, we'll miss the bigger picture. The bigger picture wasn't for the nitpicking to be a distraction. The bigger picture was for us to not be able to come together and unify in the common goal that we both had. We both loved John. We both wanted John to be okay. We both wanted John to be well and to be healed. That's it. If we could have stayed focused, I like to tell my kids all the time, keep the main thing the main thing. If we could have kept the main thing the main thing and not been so focused on the distractions, then I'm sure that the outcome would have been differently, even if not for John and I, but for the situation at a whole, right? So, little things happening. Talk to mom about that. Mom denied it, said it wasn't true. I never took it any further. I kind of just left it there. But the one day that I did hear her speaking negatively about me to the nurse, I put a stop to it, right? I had to, because at this point, it's like you're coming into my home and you're being disrespectful, and that's not okay. So I remember, like, I have like a doorbell camera, which most of the world have doorbell cameras today. And so, of course, I had like two cameras throughout the house anyway, because like there's a nurse coming in the house with him, and I don't know this nurse. Nobody's here. So I'm like, yeah, we're just going to make sure that things are, copacetic or however. So when someone hits the doorbell camera, it like just starts, like it'll alert you and it'll just start recording. And so that's what it did. And so as I'm listening, I'm able to hear John's mom and the nurse as John sat there, right? Now, John is home. And I get John is still recovering, but John still sat there and he didn't say anything. And his mom was talking negatively about me to the nurse, and she was saying that I'm controlling and I think I know it all, and that she would prefer him to be at her house, and she didn't want him to be here because she didn't feel like I could properly take care of him, and that it's always been things between me and her because I think that I'm this and that and the third. And I mean, like, it just went on and on and on. This was the most negative conversation that I could ever imagine coming from my mother-in-law at the time, right? Because you're John's mom, but you're my mother-in-law. I've been a part of your family for years now, well over a decade. So it's almost like one of those things was where, like, we should be closer than this for someone like a nurse to come in and for you to feel that you can just confide in someone who doesn't even know us, right? So I called the agency, got the nurse replaced. I was like, yeah, don't want her anymore. Kind of told them what was happening and that she just couldn't come back. And so she was very upset. She kept trying to call me to apologize. She kept trying to call me to tell me that it wasn't her. It was more so the mother-in-law. But at that point, you entertained the conversation and you agreed with her in even about the food. Like, yeah, because she keep trying to make him eat that food and he don't want to eat that food and bop, bop, bop. And I'm like, yeah, you got to go. I told the mom, like, I love you, but you are no longer welcome here at this home. Like, you cannot speak negatively about me in our home and think that that is going to be okay and that that is going to be acceptable. You're no longer welcome here. So if you want to continue to look out for John, if you want to continue to all of the, and this is your son. So I am absolutely not expecting for you to walk away and to not see him and to not talk to him and to not communicate with him, any of those things. You just can't do that here. You can come here and pick him up and y'all can go to his sister's house because his sister was like 15 minutes away. If you want to do that, I don't care how you do it. You are just no longer welcome in this house. It was hard. It was, but can I just say how proud of myself I was? Because if you know the history of John's mom and I, we've always had like this really toxic back and forth kind of relationship. I have like, she's taught me so many things though, because honestly, she was my pastor for a long time. And if I didn't, like, if I hadn't had those experiences that I had with her, I don't know if I could always separate the God from the man. Right? So I've learned how to really get on my face. Have you ever heard of people say, like, okay, that situation really taught me how to pray. It really taught me how to get on my face. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would be where I am in God. That is how I feel. Because there were moments when I had to go to God, like, God, I'm about to, what do my kids say? Tweak out? I don't even know what tweak out means. Like when my daughter be like, Mom, about to tweak out, I'd be like, go ahead, because I want to see what it looks like, right? I don't know this younger terminology, but there were moments when I would have to go to God, like, God, I'm going to tweak out. Maybe not saying tweak out, but thinking like tweak out. So when all of those things happened, things were just already starting to get rocky. John and I were not properly communicating in the sense of like, because I could feel that he was upset that his mom couldn't come back, rightfully so. But he wasn't upset about the fact that his mom spoke negatively about me to the nurse or even to his dad's family. That was an issue for me, and we weren't aligning in why we were upset. We weren't aligning in that. And so I remember, that happening. His sister would still come. She would still come and, visit with him. She could still come and, hang out with him or whatever the case may be. But I could always just tell how his energy would just shift, right? It was almost like John was trying to paint a picture of being mistreated or feeling like if you guys aren't here, then I'm by myself, as if we weren't like going hard for him in the house. And so I never liked the picture that John would paint. I didn't like it at all. But this is where we are. This is what was happening, right? So I remember a situation coming where like they had something for him in his church and we didn't go to church together. So if you listen to the podcast in the earlier episodes, then you would know that we did not go to the same ministry. We went to separate churches. We kind of did life separately in a lot of different ways. And so they had something for him in his church. We were not made aware of it, but they gave him money. Now, I think for me, the part of them giving, now he's not crazy, right? But he's still clearly in recovery, right? He's still like we're doing exercises with him to get him to remember like birthdays, anniversaries, the president and dates, because his memory is not functionable to where it was. So these are things that we're having to constantly remind him of. I always like to say John remembered what he wanted to remember. He remembered that password. He remembered how to get in that phone. He remembered the things that he wanted to remember. So they gave him money and John took the money and hid the money. And so once I got rid of the first nurse, the owner of the company came until we could find a suitable replacement for the nurse, somebody who could come in, kind of explain the situation and make sure that they would be able to handle, the different things. And so she called me while I was at work one day and she was like, can I FaceTime you? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, John's, in the bathroom. And she showed me like a bunch of money that John had like hid in the pillowcase. And I'm like, okay, where did that come from? And she was like, I don't know. And so she was like, I don't know. But I asked John, I said, John, where's this money? And he was like, oh, that's his money. His mom and him gave it to him and he had to hold on to it. And I asked him, John, do you want me to give this to your wife? And he's like, no, don't give it to her. Like, I'm going to keep it. And she said, so I'm going to take it, put it in a area for you to do whatever you need to do, right? You can give it back to him if you want to. I'm just like, it's a lot of money. If it would have been anybody else, they probably would have just taken it. I want you to know that we found it and we're going to put it in this particular place. So when you get home, you can grab it. So when I get home and I go to it, it's like hundreds of dollars, right? And so I'm like just asking questions around it just to see if he's going to tell me, because at this point he doesn't even know that I know. And I was like, John, are they paying you at church? And he's like, no, they not even paying me anymore because I don't play like that anymore. When clearly John was still playing. But he was like, yeah, no, they're not paying me anymore. So he was wanting to just hold on to his money, which I thought was really selfish in the sense of like, I'm working not one, but two jobs because I'm trying to make sure that our house is maintained while you're down because you can't work. And you get finances and then you hide them from me. So he would tell me things and he would be like, yeah, no, they not doing this and that. So one day his sister came to drop him off and I had a conversation with her and she's like, that's not true. Like, John gets paid every Sunday. I don't know why he's lying to you, but John is telling us that, you know, you're trying to take his money. And I'm like, I can't even take money that I don't even know that John has. So at this point, I felt like John was starting to be very manipulative. It was almost like he was trying to fuel the fire that was already happening between the family, right? Like, because we're not coming together, your mom is no longer here. Now you're going to make things worth on both ends because you're lying to me about them, but then you're lying to them about me. And so we kind of just had that conversation and we kind of just cleared up the things. We are on our way to the beach because we needed like a break, right? We just needed to go. We needed to get away. There were so many things that were happening. And this trip was already planned even before I found the money. Let me be clear. I just want to put that out there, right? Um, but, and all I did with the money was put it in our housing account, basically, because if it was going to be spent, it was going to go towards house, right? Because that's what we're doing. So my son had like a game or something. So we ended up having to wait until the game was over. And then we were going to head down there. And so the whole car ride, John was like on his phone. My son was sending texts in our group chat. So we had like a family group chat with all of us. And then we had like one with just me and the kids. And he was like, Mom, I think Dad is like texting a female. And so I thought it was really weird. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, Ma, like I keep seeing him, like the stuff that's coming up because he's sitting right behind him in the car. And so I was just like, okay, not really. I can't even allow it to like take me there because clearly I know what's happened, but they don't. So for him, I can't give an arousal to that because then it may indicate like something else. So we get down to the beach and I'm trying to like just talk to him like, no, it probably wasn't that. Like, I'm sure it was something else. And my son is like, Mom, check his phone. And we tried to check the phone again, couldn't get in the phone because that code was always on lock. Okay. I still to this day don't know what that code was, but whatever it was, he remembered it. It was obviously important enough for him to remember it, which is what the doctor said. He said the things that were the most priority to him are things that will come back first. That code was priority because it came back. So never got to clear that up, but I remember just telling my children, don't worry about it. Like that's not it. Don't trust me. That's not it. So I'm talking, I think, to my best friend at the time, and I'm just kind of like, because she was like my outlet, right? I could pray about a lot of things, but I needed somebody to like really like outlet to. And so I was telling her, you know, and I was like, listen, if I'm not going to be able to do this, if he comes back and he's that same guy, I'm not staying with him after that. Like, clearly, if you almost lose your life for 15 minutes dead on the floor and you come back and you don't change, I don't know what's going to get you to change. I'm not going to stay around to like see. I'm not going to wait around to figure out what that thing is for you. And so I remember saying that to her. But clearly I had made up in my mind. I didn't consult God about it, but I made up in my mind like after everything that we have been through, and he gets home, if he comes home, and this was before all of these things started happening, all right? But I was just like, if he comes home and he's a completely different person, I will pretend like I never even knew about the emails. I won't ever mention it. And I want to be very clear, to this day, 5 years later, I've never mentioned it. I've never mentioned to him that I found those emails, right? So I was like, if I won't even mention that I found the emails. I'll just go from where we are. We'll start from a clean slate and we will just build from that. And I'll just put all of those things behind us because that will be the past, right? That was my thought process, because clearly in my mind, he's going to come out a changed man, right? Like, I'm like, ain't no way. That close to the end of life, there's no way, right? So fast forward, I'm telling her this, and I'm really feeling, some type of way saying it. It was just like something was just not sitting right with me. So it was already making me feel like something was just going on. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm like, something's just not right. So every day, John was always just like on his phone. We got a new nurse in, and he was depressed. I get it. Just from all of the events that were happening. One particular night, we had like a flood in our house, like the toilet downstairs in the bathroom where he was, it erupted. So this particular day, I called one of his friends and I was like, hey, is there like a practice or something that he can go to? Because he's sad. I really want him to be able to like at least get out, feel like he's not like, because it's a transition of life for him, from going all the time, being your own, like being able to move when you want to move and do what you want to do, to now you're totally dependent. You can't drive, you can't walk, like you can't remember things like you used to, so you're not gigging anymore. Like, it's a completely different life for him. And I acknowledged that, and I wanted as much as possible to bridge that gap for him so that he didn't feel like his life was over. Your life is just in transition. You just need a pause, but it's not over. And so I remember calling the friend telling me like, where he could come, where they were rehearsing at. I took him out there and then I dropped him off. I wanted him to like enjoy the rehearsal, enjoy being with his, people again, like all of the things. And so the friend was like, well, don't worry about it. I'll bring him home. You don't have to come back and get him. So I dropped him off and I left. Well, when I came home, this is when I found that the toilet had erupted. So we ended up not being able to stay in the house that night because we couldn't flush the toilet. I needed to get somebody out there. They couldn't come until the next morning. So I'm calling the friend and calling the friend and calling the friend, and the friend is not answering. And I'm trying to just basically tell the friend that we're not going to be at the house, so you can meet me with him. You can bring him to the hotel that we're going to be at, or you can, I can meet you at the house with them, because the hotel was literally like not even 10 minutes from our house. But the friend would never answer the phone, and it was so weird. But there was like the flood was on my mind so much that I couldn't really like focus on it so much, right? I'm like, it's weird. So after a while, John calls me and he says, I'm at home. Where you at? And I'm like, well, I have been trying to call the friend and tell him, because I couldn't get John on the phone. I had been trying to call the friend to tell him about the flood so he could bring you to meet me, or I would meet you. And he was like, well, I'm already here and I'm sitting on the porch. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to come get you. And I thought it was really weird that he would even leave him on the porch. I was like, that is so weird that he would leave you on the porch. That's weird to me. So that was the first brow raise for me. I'm going to take you to 3 brow raises before we get to the main event, right? So that was the first raise for me. Um, Moving on, there was another day coming for a rehearsal. And I remember, like John was super dependent on us in here. So like getting in and getting out of the car, we open the door, he sit down, we fold up the walker, like, we do all of the things for John here. John was like, "Hey, they're having a rehearsal here. I'm just going to sit into the rehearsal, whatever." Okay, so he decides that he's gonna wait outside, right, for them to come and pick him up. And I'm like, okay. So he's standing outside, leaned kind of on the car because he can't stand but so long. He's on the walker. And he's leaned on the car. I'm in the house and I'm cooking and I'm like completely not paying any attention. My oldest daughter is, I don't know if she was outside or if she was inside going outside. I'm not sure. Somebody rolled up in a car to pick John up, and it was a female. And John was like literally packing up his own walker, putting it in the back seat of her car, and then hopping, back to the front seat to get in the car. And so she runs in the house to like get me. And she's like, Mom, you got to come here. You got to come here. Daddy's getting in the car with a woman. And so I'm like, what? And so I walk outside and he's clearly closing the door at this point. And I'm like, John, what is going on? And he's like, I'm going to rehearsal. I'll be back. And they drive off. And I'm like, okay. Eyebrow raised, strike two, right? So he calls me on the phone and he's like, you mad? And I'm like, should I be? And he's like, this is somebody's wife. They couldn't get me from rehearsal, so they sent their wife to pick me up. Like, so she just came to pick me up and then she gonna bring me back tonight. And I'm like, okay, if that's your truth. And he's like, yeah, like, I don't got no reason to lie. That's my truth, whatever. So, okay. Later on that night, he sends me a text and he says, I think I'm going to go to my sister's house tonight. I'm not coming home. And I said, okay. So then I text his sister and I said, hey, is John at your house tonight? And she's like, no, I haven't talked to John all day. And she was like, oh my God, what he done did now. Those were her exact words through that message. And I said, I don't know what your brother is up to, but I want you to know I'm not playing no games with him. I'm not doing it. And so that was the end of that conversation. Later on, he sent a message to my son to say, because I think at this point I'm gone to work. And so my son was like, well, Mom, what do I do? Like, do I wait up for him? Because once you get upstairs, you can't hear our doorbell that well. So he's like, Mom, what do I do? Do I wait up for him? Do I go to bed? And I said, no, you go to bed. You just go to bed. You lock up, you put the alarm on, you go to bed. And that's what he did. So later on that night, he's calling and he's texting my son, and he didn't call me. He knew that I was at work for one, but two, he probably didn't want me to have somebody looking out the window before, because I'm assuming that they're going to wait until somebody gets him in the door, I guess. I don't know. So he finally gets home, and it's like after 11, and he's calling my son, texting my son so my son can come and let him in the house, right? Because clearly he doesn't remember our door code, but he remembers his phone code, right? Okay. So that was strike two. That was the second strike. And so at this point, I'm just like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but it's not settling with me. It's not feeling like, this isn't feeling right. It's not feeling like there is something happening. and I don't know what's happening, but let me tell you what I'm not going to do, right? And these were my feelings, right? These were my feelings at this point, because it's like I have sacrificed so much, right? So you ever have that moment in your life where you're ready to like go back, and you're ready to actually see, and you're ready to actually let me go back and like run the replay of the events in my life that has surrounded this, right? And so that's kind of where I was. I feel like I was going back to run the replay. And I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been with this guy for a long time. Like at some point, Sharon, you're going to have to be like, enough is enough. There is no way that you're going to sacrifice all of the things. Like the last couple of months were nothing but sacrifices, right? Like, and not just months, let's say years. This isn't the first time that I've been a caretaker for John. When John had his wreck back in 2012 and he got threw out the car and his entire leg was messed up, he couldn't walk. I was John's caretaker. John had a hole in his leg where the dressing had to be changed twice a day. And I was the caretaker in doing that. I gave him a bath. I helped him out with all of the things. It wasn't the first rodeo for me. So clearly in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on, but it's not sitting right. And there is no way that we're running this back. Like the last couple of months, between like lack of sleep, because I'm doing all of the things, I'm working, I'm going to school, I'm taking care of our kids, I'm dealing with your disrespectful family. Like I'm doing all of the things. Let me be very clear, right? At this point, I'm making sure that all things are getting done. And this is how you're repaying me. You're lying. I can't keep up with your lies at this point. And like now I feel like you're doing things behind my back and I can't trust you. So for me, things were starting to get to that point where I was like, okay, something is gotta give. Something is happening, right? And then he was mean, like he was on a lot of different medications. He was on a lot of different things. My dad, who is like a very holistic guy, my dad sent me a lot of different things for the brain and all of the things that were holistic for him to take. So he's taking a lot of different things. And he gets to the point where he doesn't want to take his medicine. And so if he gets to the point where he doesn't want to take his medicine, he kind of takes that out on us. He takes that out on the kids. Like our baby girl, who was about 3 at the time, was very afraid of him. She was very afraid of him because she would see him swing his walkers, see him swing his like cane stick. He would always just look so mean, just look so rude. And she just was afraid of him. And so with those little things, right, it was just like you put all of that together. And I'm not blaming him for that, because to a certain extent, your life has changed. Like, could you imagine your entire life changing like in the blink of an eye? I just snapped my fingers. I don't know if you could hear that. But like in the blink of an eye, your entire world is shifting. And it has changed. And now you went from controlling all of the things that you felt like controlling to controlling nothing. You don't control what you eat. You don't control what you wear. You don't control when you get dressed. You don't control when you go. Like you can't drive. Like all of these things you cannot control, right? So the third strike for me, and I'm going to give you what this strike was, and then we're going to go. And then next episode is going to be an entire episode of the main event that was the straw for us. So I get a phone call from like a police officer, and the police officer is calling for me because John's truck is in my name. And they're saying, hey, we just got word that this truck was in an accident, and we are trying to, like, it was a hit and run or something. And I'm like, yeah, no, this truck was not in a hit and run. This truck has not even been moved. Like, the owner of this truck is sick. They haven't been driving it, so there's no way that this truck was in a hit and run. And he's like, "Well, is your address still bop bop bop?" And he had already identified himself as being sheriff, whoever. And because I don't listen, I am not no criminal. I don't do jail time. That is not in my radar. Orange and I do not look good together. Like, we don't go together. I was like, no, that is not our address anymore. We've left from there. This is our address now. And so clearly, John had not updated the things on his truck. So it brought it back to me, I guess, why his mom felt like she needed to take care of it, because clearly John wasn't taking care of it. So John sends me a call, and the call says that they come and they've repoed his truck, and that I needed to call them. And so whenever I call the company and I'm talking to the people, and they're telling me like, yeah, John has not been making payments. John has not made a payment in like a full payment in so long. He's only been making like partial payments, and he's so behind. He's told us that he was sick, but he's been telling us he's been sick for over 2 years now. And like, we've tried working with him. We don't know what else to do. If you want it back, this is the amount that you have to pay. And at this point, I was just like, this guy has just been lying all around, right? You have not been sick for 2 years. I can't understand why you've only made a partial payment in the last however long, when clearly you've been working, you've been making money. So what are you doing with your money? Because I'm not seeing no extra fruits of you not making your payments. So it was confusing, but it also let me know that this guy is lying. He's been lying, and he's a compulsive liar. So anything that's coming out of his mouth, even now, you've got a question, which was a lot for me, because I didn't think that I should have to question anything that you're saying at this point after all that you've been through. But it just goes to show that it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what a person goes through. This is why we don't marry people and think that we're going to change them, because clearly people have to be in a position, people have to be willing, and people have to want to change. You can want change, you can want better, you can want things to look different for them. Like, you can want all of that for them, but until they get to a place where they are ready to accept that for themselves, they will not. And so if you go into a marriage, if you go into a relationship, if you go into a friendship, if you go into any type of ship, right? And you think that you're going in to change a person, I want to let you know right now that you're going to be disappointed. And even if you do feel like you change them, it's a temporary change, because they've got to want it. Now, you can introduce change to them, but the change is going to be the steps that they make for themselves. You're not going to be able to do that for them. And so at that point, it was allowing me to know that this guy has been lying. This guy has not. All that he's gone through, he's still the same guy, right? And so when we talked about it, and when I'm telling him what they're saying, he's telling me that they're lying, because he never said that. He's up to date on his payments. And I'm like, well, clearly, if you're up to date on your payments, they wouldn't have come and just taken your truck. It's only been like 2 months. And he's like, because he was still getting paid from work, like up until, I don't know, however long. So it wasn't like you weren't getting the money at all to do what you needed to do. And then the money that you got from your mom or from the church or whatever, you could have said like, this is money that needs to go towards my car payment, if that's what the money was for. But the money clearly went into our mortgage account, like it went into our housing account, and so it got dispersed with bills. So lack of communication, lying, all of the things were coming to a head with John at this point. And I was becoming more frustrated with doing good, right? So how often do we find ourselves? And I love the scripture that says, "Be not weak and weary be not weak and weary in your waiting." I think I'm putting two different scriptures together. But don't, what is the scripture? It's always like whenever you're looking for a scripture, you clearly can't find it. Like when you're trying to think of a scripture, that's whenever it's like not in your brain the way it needs to be. So I'm going to look it up because I don't want to I don't want anybody to be like, girl, you need to read your Bible clearly. Don't get weak in your well doing. Yep. Galatians 6:9. I think I was saying it right the first time. But you don't want to get weak and weary in your well doing, for in due season you're going to reap, right? And so I'm looking at it like, God, I'm getting weak and weary in my well doing. I am doing all of the things that I know how to do as a wife. I'm doing all of the things that I know how to do in this particular moment, in this situation, especially with the cards that I've been dealt. I'm doing all of these things, but I am really feeling like I feel like my good is being overlooked. Like my good is being taken for granted. I'm feeling like all of my good is in vain, right? Because sometimes you'll be doing things and you'll be doing good, but then your brain will start to make you feel like that your good is in vain when God is clearly not out here wasting seasons, and God is clearly not out here ever forgetting your works. He's never forgetting the things that you do. And so I'm saying that because I want somebody to be encouraged when you're doing things for people and when you feel like they're overlooking it, even if they are, I just want you to know that your Father in heaven is not. He is not ever overlooking. He is not ever forgetting the things that you're doing with the right postured heart. He's not forgetting those things. They're not overlooking, so you don't have to feel forsaken in that. But that is how I was feeling. And so I was at a place almost at a crossroad where I'm starting to pray about God, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like clearly how I felt before was how I felt different. You know, how I was feeling differently than that. One thing that I will say that I think was the blessing for me is God healing my heart of the things that I found when he was still in the hospital. Because if I didn't have, if God wouldn't have taken that from me, then I would have been piling these things on top of it and he wouldn't have stood a chance. It would have been an already swayed situation to where I'm going off what I feel and what I want and what I think I need to do versus trying my very best to be sensitive to God, sensitive to his spirit, and sensitive to what he's saying in the situation, right? Because ultimately I love marriage. I still love marriage to this day. I don't feel like marriage is not for me because marriage didn't work out in my first marriage. I don't feel like that at all. I absolutely adore marriage, kingdom marriage, and what it looks like in the kingdom, like how it represents the kingdom. I'm here for all of that. And so I'm at this point where I'm like, God, I want to make sure that I'm pleasing you. I want to make sure that I'm doing what you want me to do in this situation. And God, I'm starting to feel really foolish and stupid and like, God, is this the best that you got for me? Like, God, is this what I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life? Like, God, like I'm starting to ask a series of questions to the Father. And I'm like, God, I need you to show me what to do. I need you to tell me what to do. I need you to let me know what's next for me. And then it happened. It wasn't in the way that I probably would have wanted God to show me. But God is absolutely an answer to prayers. He will answer your prayer, even if the delivery isn't how you want it, he will definitely do what you asked him to do. And so that's what he did. Leading up to the night of the event, right? Leading up to the night of the event and all of the things that took place on that night, it was literally God answering my prayer. Okay? So I'm stopping there, of course. We're going to start the next episode with the event itself because there's so many layers and so many details in that. And then we'll be wrapping up this portion of it, and then I'll be able to move on to the next phase. But thank you guys so much again for just tuning in. Thank you guys so much for sharing with me in or listening as I share my journey to identity and what that looked like for me. I appreciate you guys, for everyone who dials in, for everyone who shares and likes, for you who comment. Like, whatever it is that you're doing, I want you to know that it doesn't go unnoticed and it's not in vain. I appreciate you. And my hope is that in all that you hear me say, that it gives you hope and it inspires you to know that your journey is not in vain. No matter where you are in your journey right now, your journey is not in vain. And there is still something that God wants to do through you. And there's an identity that he wants to get you to. So again, I am Sharon Tillman. I love you guys for real. Have an amazing day.